Hello. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Breathe and Receive podcast. We have a very, very exciting guest with us today. His name is Stephen Kessler, or Dr. Stephen Kessler. He has lived a whole life, and a big part of his life was writing a book called The Five Personality Patterns. And this book has changed my life and my clients' lives in so many ways. I have gifted this book to many, many friends and family members, and everyone's minds are so blown. So I'm very excited to have Stephen as a guest here to share more about these patterns, and we'll see what else flows. So welcome, Stephen, to the Breathe and Receive podcast.
I'm glad to be here with you. I'm not
I'm
actually a doctor. I only got a master's degree in transpersonal psych. But, my observation was the higher up you go in the degrees, the more head-centered and the less embodied people become. And they get held by these stricter and stricter rules. More heart-centered for the master's degree than the PhD and the MDs.
doctorate. Wow,
Yeah.
this whole time I've called you Dr. Stephen Kessler. Well, I see that in you, but
All right. Well,
you're
it's about official doctorates versus just actually living and learning.
absolutely. And I think when you write a book in a topic, you're an expert. So would you be open to sharing with us from the beginning just a general overview of the five personality patterns, and why did you write a whole book on these?
Yeah. Pardon me. First of all, I didn't invent this. This actually started almost 100 years ago with Wilhelm Reich, who was one of the star students of Sigmund Freud. Pardon me. And Freud was very focused on the mind and differentiating the conscious from the unconscious. Big deal back then. Pardon me. And Reich was more attuned to the flow of energy in the body. So he was paying attention to how energy flowed in a person's body as they tried to protect themselves and feel safer. And then he taught this to some of his best students. They wrote their books, and it's come down through a kind of a narrow lineage. And when I began learning this about 20 years ago, first of all, I'd been studying the Enneagram for almost 20 years and had been a tremendous fan of the Enneagram. And when I began studying this way of understanding people, I realized that this is actually simpler and more true to life than the Enneagram, because this arises out of what actually happens in people, whereas the Enneagram is a little bit sort of imposed from above with the holy ideals. And as I applied it to my own clients in my own psychotherapy practice, I've been a therapist for 40 years. And as I read some of the books that were written on it, and there haven't been very many. There's only about a half dozen decent books written on this in the whole 100 years. I discovered that most of this teaching was kind of hidden in the backwaters of psychoanalysis for Freudians, or neo-Freudians or neo-Reichians, or in the energy healing community for people who, can see auras and have those talents. But there wasn't anything accessible to the general public, to the kind of average person, which is where I fall on this scale. So I thought, there ought to be a book. And I think I kind of got drafted by whoever is in charge of this lineage, in the unseen realms. And they said, he can do this. Let's get him. So, I can't really say it was totally my idea, but it certainly has seemed to be Very, very helpful to lots of people. I've gotten lots of emails from people all around the world with basically your story about my God. You know, this is so me. This is so my brother. This is so my spouse. This is so my child. This is now I finally understand what's going on with this person or with me, despite many years of therapy, which didn't really help that much. So,
Totally.
yeah. So I'm glad it's been so helpful to you and to your clients. I'm really, really glad.
When I first discovered this book, it was at the beginning of COVID. And I was living
Uh,
with three other women at the time. And we all got on the couch and we're like reading it. And we're like, our minds are getting blown about how you speak to how when we get in a state of overwhelm, our energy flows in different ways. And we began to see how all of our different patterns were showing up in this like extremely intense like first few months of COVID where there was so much unknown. I primarily go into the leaving or merging pattern. And I was like, I actually ended up moving out of the house. I went into like the full on leaving pattern a few months later. And it was just so interesting. So, could you give us an overview of the five patterns?
yeah. So the easiest way to understand this is to start with the 5 safety strategies, because each of these patterns develops from the use of a safety strategy over and over and over and over again until it gets conditioned into the person's body and becomes automatic. And the 5 safety strategies are just really the only 5 choices, especially for a little kid, but in the end, even for an adult, for a situation in which you're overwhelmed and you don't feel safe and you want to feel safer. Doing one of these safety strategies doesn't actually make you safer in many cases, but it at least helps you feel safer, right? So the 5 safety strategies are leaving the situation. In other words, whoever is upsetting you, bothering you, you get away. Now, you might physically leave, or you might leave your body. You might dissociate, and your body is still there, but nobody's home. So leaving is the first one. If you think of them developmentally, it's the youngest. The second one is the opposite. You don't leave, you actually move towards the other person and you try to get them to solve the problem for you. And this is what every infant does. An infant can't run away, it can't fight. All it can do is cry out for help. And that is absolutely natural and normal and appropriate for that stage of life. All it can do is cry and hope that someone will come and fix whatever the problem is. A person who uses the merging pattern continues doing that over and over and over again. And that creates in them a belief that whenever I'm upset, I need to move closer to someone, even if it's the person who's upsetting me. And I need to help them feel better and compliment them and flatter them and make them like me. I need you to like me. I like you. Don't you like me? Don't hurt me. Right? In
100%. I
Yeah.
think a lot of us have that pattern.
Well, all of these strategies work somewhat. You get to feel a little safer. And maybe you are really safer. I mean, we've all been to high school or middle school in a situation where there were bullies, and you thought, well, if I can at least get the bully to like me, they won't beat me up. They can beat somebody else up, but I'll be okay. You know, Running away is another option from the bully. A third option is you pull your energy in and you send it down into the lower part of your body and even into the ground below you to hide. You hunker down. This is the safety strategy adopted by a child who couldn't get away and tried fighting back and lost. But if the kid keeps losing over and over and over again, eventually they decide, I can't win. Instead, I will try to avoid losing. If I don't really fight, I won't really lose. I'll just hunker down. It's like becoming a turtle. You know, you pull in all your arms and legs, you pull in your head, you close your shell, and you go, okay, the storm is going to blow over above me, and I'm not paying attention. Sometimes that's the best you can do. Again, the opposite of that is the fourth strategy, which is instead of bringing your energy in and down, you bring it up and you send it out to try to be bigger and stronger and intimidating and dominate the rest of the people. This is known as the aggressive pattern. The third one is called the enduring pattern or the enduring strategy. This is the aggressive strategy. It's like, I'm bigger than you, I will fight you, and I will win. And I will control this whole situation, and I will get angry enough that you will do what I want. Anger becomes tactical, right? And the person develops a big energy. A person has to have a naturally big flow of life energy through their body to pull this off. For each of these 5 safety strategies, you have to be able to pull it off in real life when you're a little kid and you're developing it. If you can't make it work for you, it doesn't work, and you think, this is a bad idea, let's try something else. And if you're raising little kids, you can watch them try out all 5. You can watch them try it, and depending on their natural talents, their gender, their culture, their place in the family. Do they have older brothers and sisters or younger brothers and sisters? If they're the oldest, that's different from being, the 4th oldest with 3 older brothers who hit you and beat you up, So
Or the parents.
Or parents. A lot of people have parents who beat them up. What can you do? You're 3 or 4 and they're huge. You can't win. But you can protect yourself, or you can leave. You can feel them coming from a long way away and hide under the stairs, or, get out of here. Or try to be nice to them. Try to get them to like you and not hurt you. So those are the first 4: leaving, merging, enduring, aggressive. The 5th one is it's more something that's actually taught by a parent to the child. And the teaching is you must control yourself and you must follow the rules. You must stand up straight, comb your hair, brush your teeth. Don't get spots on your clothes. Don't get dirty. Say please and thank you. Say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and yes, sir. And whatever the rules are in this household and this culture, you follow the rules and you ignore the emotions in the core of your body in order to do that. And you focus on your performance instead. And the way you do that energetically is there's a kind of a ring constriction down the body, which makes the flow of energy through the body narrower and faster. So you don't feel your emotions as much. And you get good at the words and good at the performing whatever you're supposed to be. And maybe you don't feel so much. But you probably get good grades in school. And your parents like you, or, approve of your behavior. Maybe they don't like you, but they like your behavior. Maybe it's a household without a lot of emotional connection. So these are 5 ways that a kid can try to find some safety. And we all do 2 of these, at least, sometimes 3, but usually just 2. Nobody I've known actually does 5 of them. And I haven't heard of anybody who does only 1. But sometimes the other one they don't do very much. Maybe it's a 10%, 90% split. Maybe they go through the first one really fast. There's generally a primary, a first one you choose when things are getting a little annoying or dicey or out of hand. And then when you hit a certain threshold, you shift to the second pattern. And for some people, the shift happens really quick. For other people, they don't shift until things are really, really, really bad. So you hardly ever see strategy number two. Is that making sense?
Yes, I could hear and read you explain those over and over and over again. It's so fascinating to me because when you go through each pattern, I see in my head flashes of people
Of
who
course you
are,
do.
yes, people I know, people even in movies.
Uh-huh.
And it's so interesting to me how these are safety patterns that we go into to feel safe. However,
Mhm.
it literally shapes our personality, who we become, how people see us. So,
Absolutely. The patterns develop in people, and the person becomes so identified with it that if you ask them, why do you do that? They'll say, well, that's just the way I am. Because they've never really asked themselves, well, why do I do this? And these other people do something different.
so what happens when we become aware of these patterns? We understand our pattern and how to come back to a place of presence, which you teach in your book, and we can talk about that if you'd like. But I'm curious, what what are the benefits of understanding your pattern and moving through that?
The biggest benefit of understanding any map of personality, whether it's this one or the Enneagram or even the Myers-Briggs map, um, is the realization that, wow, everybody else isn't just like me. They actually experience the world differently than I do. That is a huge thing to realize in life because we start out with two huge misunderstandings. The first misunderstanding is that we are experiencing all of reality. In fact, we're only experiencing a particular slice of it, the slice that we habitually pay attention to. And this is about habits of attention. Our attention becomes habituated, just like, you habitually use your right hand or your left hand for writing or for, fine muscle stuff. We all develop as children certain habits of attention, and that determines where our attention goes, whether we want it to or not. And where you put your attention determines what you experience in life. So a person with a different habit of attention is actually experiencing the same scene, the same world differently than you are. So that's mistake number one. Everyone is just like me. And I'm experiencing the whole thing. No, I'm just experiencing my own slice. And the second mistake is our belief that even in our own slice, we're experiencing it accurately. In fact, our personality patterns are distorting our thinking and our feelings and causing us to experience this situation um, in a distorted way. It brings certain parts of the whole experience into the foreground, and we say, oh, that's very important. And it pushes other things into the background and they get kind of dim. For instance, person with leaving pattern, the leaving pattern, the habit of attention is looking for where is there danger? How could I be injured here, hurt? What do I need to get away from? Um, the people who study computers often think in terms of processing speed. How much data the central processing unit of the computer can process in a given time, a minute, a second, whatever. And they've now applied that to human beings, to the mind, the conscious mind, and to the body. And what they've discovered is the conscious mind can take in and process about 40 bits of information per second, through seeing, hearing, feeling, listening to words, conscious.
Through our senses.
Yeah. But the body, also known as the unconscious mind, can take in and digest 40 million bits of data per
Whoa.
second. That's 1,000,000 to 1 difference, okay? So the body takes in a lot more information and actually has a better read, a better understanding of the whole situation. And then the body is trying to feed this information up to the mind. But there's a filter in place. And the filter is based on what your unconscious beliefs are about what's important. So if your unconscious belief is what's important for me to notice is who is dangerous, who do I need to get away from here? Then the data that comes up from your body is where is there danger? You see the danger, you don't see who, you don't see where there's love. You don't see who has power. You don't see what the rules are, right? But you see the danger. But for you, it seems like the danger is big and the love stuff and the power stuff, that's way in the background. We don't care about that. Merging pattern, different priority. For merging pattern, the priority is where is the love? I want to find the love. I want to be close to the love. I want you to love me. I love you. We're going to be together, right? So they miss the danger. If you're in that mindset and that habit of attention, you miss the danger. You also miss who has power. When you miss the danger, one of the common mistakes for people who are really caught in merging pattern is they tend to get addicted to drugs, to substances, because it makes them feel good. They don't realize cocaine is not my friend. Well, it felt good, right? At least momentarily.
Yeah, I also see an addiction. So I tend to speak to a lot of women who experience anxious attachment in relationships. And this
Mhm.
is a pattern of mine in the past. And it's something I still move through and am actively healing. When I'm like, I'm single and I'm dating, and when I'm really interested in someone, I notice my merging pattern is like, I'm always sensing, what are they feeling? How are they?
Exactly.
I'm leaving my body. So
Yeah.
it is the cause of anxious attachment, this merging pattern, they're definitely very related, right?
They are related. They tend to go together. Because if you think that your safety is in getting another person to like you and love you, then you're always anxious about whether they like you and love you. And it's important to remember that each of these 5 safety strategies, since it's, if you do, whichever ones of these you do all the time. And that's how each one develops into its own personality pattern and really kind of becomes a big chunk of your personality. But because you do it so much, you develop this incredible set of skills, which are the gifts of that pattern. So especially for a person who does merging pattern, and especially if they do both merging and leaving. So leaving pattern is good on the airwaves. They're really good at psychically sensing what's going on. And merging pattern is very good at putting attention on the core of the other person's body and discovering, well, what's going on inside them? What do they want? Do they like me? Who do they want me to be? I want to be who they want me to be, so they like me. So who do they want me to be? So you develop this incredible skill for noticing what the other person is feeling and wanting and needing. It's a great skill to have. I mean, socially, it's the best. The skill that's missing is, what am I feeling? What am I wanting and needing? I'm getting left out, right? The person with merging pattern isn't paying attention to themselves. And if it's merging and leaving combination, the leaving pattern isn't paying attention to the body. They're saying, I don't care about the body. I'm getting out of here. So
Yeah,
nobody is paying attention to yourself. You're great at being who they want, but that's a little distorted in terms of good navigation in life, right?
absolutely. You're really speaking to my two patterns. And so a healer introduced me to your work, and we used that work as we were doing some energy healing in my body, and he really helped me feel my body for the first time, feel my needs, feel my core, feel my center. And it was deeply uncomfortable at first. And
Uh,
this was back in 2019. And as I've practiced it and practiced it and practiced it, it's so beautiful as you're speaking to these gifts, because I noticed these gifts come online in me. Like I have noticed some like psychic abilities, which I know is like, it's very spiritual and we're talking like very scientific, but they really blend together is what I noticed. And as I rest more in my body and like come back to my center, when I am noticing myself merging, I actually can feel more accurately what other people want. And I'm more nurturing and loving and soft
uh, right.
to myself and then to others. So it's so beautiful, these gifts.
And this is a great skill to have as long as you also can feel yourself, because the big decisions you have to make for yourself. Like, do I want to marry this person? Well, maybe they want to marry me, and I can sense that. And knowing they want to marry me, that's wonderful. But the fact that they want to marry me doesn't necessarily mean that I want to marry them. I have to be able to get the answer here at home also. Because if I marry them just because they want me, I'm going to wind up being uncomfortable and unhappy in the relationship because I don't really want to be there. And sooner or later, that I don't really want this thing will come to the fore. You can't ignore it forever.
Yes, it's that people pleasing, right? It's like even to have sex with a partner when you actually your body doesn't want it, it can create these like builds up of resentment over time and blocks in the relationship.
You're abandoning your own body,
Mm.
which is actually wiser than your conscious mind. So part of the practice, as you are learning, is pay more attention to your body. Learn to put attention in the core of your body, which is from the very crown of your head, right down through the center of your body to the bottom of your torso, to your perineum. Imagine a column there. That is the place in your body where you are the most you. That is the place where you can get answers to, what do I want for lunch? Do I like this job? Do I love this person? Do I want to live in this house? Do I want to marry this person? The big questions and the little ones, you know?
Yes,
What restaurant
it's
do I want to go to? The answer is in here.
yes. In my I teach this course called Love Embodied, and the past 2 weeks we've focused solely on coming into your body and learning what's an intuitive yes, what's an intuitive no. And they're like
Very,
mind blown. They're like, is
yeah.
it normal? These Christine, one of my clients the other day said, is it normal that I I get a phone call from someone and I realize I actually don't want to talk to them at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Important information. Feelings are information from your body. And that information will help you navigate through the world and through society more skillfully.
Yes.
It's like if you're steering a boat through the rocks, you have to be able to see the rocks to avoid them. If you don't know where the rocks are, you're going to have a crash, right? You need to know what your body wants and doesn't want because it has a certain wisdom. And you can certainly, question that with your mind, like, well, why do I like this? Why don't I want to talk to this person? Let's inquire into that and feel into it and discover, well, what's at the root of that? But you got to first realize, I really don't want to talk to them. And this is
Yes.
my best friend. I don't know what's going on here. It's my brother.
Yikes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
this is
the
so
relative,
good.
and you have this belief that you should like them and want to talk to them, but in fact, you don't.
Mhm. And it's like when we're in our body and we can feel that intuition and we can inquire in it and see, is this actually my intuition? Then we can choose to feel through the fear and to have courage to say yes to what's right and to say no to what's not.
Exactly, and that courage is incredibly important.
Mm.
And those skills are especially important for the first two patterns, leaving and merging pattern, and for the rigid pattern, who also doesn't have much sense of core. They're following the rules instead of what other people want. But, maybe the rule says, well, we've been dating for 3 years, I should get married. And I didn't even check whether I want to, you know?
Mm.
But the two in between, the enduring and aggressive pattern, they have more sense of core, and they're more focused on themselves and not so worried about what's going on with you.
Mm. Yeah,
And
let's
the
dive deeper
enduring,
into those.
pardon me?
Oh, I was just going to say, let's dive deeper into those. Go ahead, the enduring pattern.
So enduring pattern is aware of what's going on with other people, but doesn't really want to engage. For them, safety is in focusing on the space and having space. And usually the way that they were wounded was that people who were bigger and stronger and had more power were coming into their space and bothering them and intruding on them and maybe, force feeding them, doing stuff to them that they didn't want, and they couldn't stop it and they couldn't get away. And so their attention, their habit of attention is to pay attention to the space around them. They're not exactly protecting their own bubble. They should be, but they're not. We all need to learn that. Maybe you're learning that skill also, known as edge, energetic edge, having a membrane, like a cell membrane around you that controls what comes in and what goes out. So they're not doing that, but they're aware of who's there and they basically want them to go away. People with aggressive pattern who do the, energy up and out, I'm bigger and stronger and I will make you do it my way. They're very focused on core and self and pretty much disregarding what other people want and need. They
So,
tend to become the CEOs of companies and the generals in wartime and the leaders. And all the stories we have, of the big fights between heroes and villains, both the heroes and the villains are probably doing the aggressive pattern. They're the ones who want to fight. The rest of the people are going, I don't want to do that. You could do that. You could get hurt.
yes, I see the aggressive pattern in my friends who are very successful entrepreneurs, very charismatic.
Yeah.
And when I was reading your book, something that stood out to me so much, it was so fascinating, was that when people in the aggressive pattern go into that aggressive, angry, like sending their
Mhm.
energy onto you state, there's this deep underlying fear. Can you speak to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The person is not consciously aware of the fear. And if you try to point it out, they will probably deny it. Because to be afraid is to be small and helpless, and that's what we want to avoid. Those are the people I'm intimidating. That's not me. You know, the wounding that creates this pattern, or that the pattern is a response to, is typically an experience in childhood, or maybe a whole set of experiences in which something bad was happening and the person was afraid they would die, and nobody else came to help them. For merging pattern, other people came and helped. For this pattern, nobody came. So the person is older, around 2 years old. Some new skills come online in a baby as it's growing, in an infant. The skills of will and strength come online. Before merging pattern and leaving pattern typically get formed before will and strength come online, so you can't really do much. Then the next three, enduring, aggressive, and rigid, form after will and strength come online. By the time we get to aggressive, the will and strength is there and it's strong, and the kid, can depend on it. So when they're in this terrifying situation and no one is helping, if they have a big enough flow of energy inside, they make a decision. I will fix it myself. I will handle this. And I will never again trust any of you people to help me out. You remember the movie 27 Hours? This guy who's out in the wild in some canyon, and he's rock climbing or whatever the hell, and he gets his arm stuck. A boulder falls and pins his arm, and he can't get his arm out.
Yes.
And the only way he escapes with his life is he pulls out his pocket knife and he saws off his own arm. I guess he does it at the elbow. Now, you pretty much have to do aggressive pattern to make that decision. Most other people will just die there, right? He assesses.
Probably me.
Yeah, right. I mean, most of us would go like, I can't get out of this, and I'm not cutting off my arm, right? And he makes this very practical, pragmatic decision. The only way to save my life in general is to give up my arm. I will cut it off. He does a tourniquet, cuts off his arm, he walks out. He doesn't collapse until he gets to a place where some other people are. I don't know if it was rangers or who it was, but he gets to where someone else can actually help him. And then he collapses. He doesn't faint before that. That's a real skill.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you need to survive in a really physically dangerous situation. And you need that ability to accurately measure what are the dangers, what resources and strengths do I have, what is needed here. You have to be able to measure that accurately, or you're going to screw up and you might die here. It's a great skill to have. It's a good skill for leading, some, soldiers in war or a corporation or something like that, because the other people will trust you. They don't necessarily like you, but they think, well, you are going to make good decisions for us. You're not going to let us die here.
Absolutely. Understanding the aggressive pattern more has allowed me to have a lot of acceptance and compassion and just non-judgmental love towards people in my life who fall into that pattern, where in the past I would be like, how can they get so mad and then be perfectly fine the next second, where I'm like jolted and shaken for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And I think specifically of a friend who actually was so open to reading your book, and I don't know if he finished it, but he loved it from when I was with him, and he started reading it. And he is the kind of person who, like, he's very charismatic, very successful entrepreneur, very fun and enjoyable and easy to talk to. And then let's say he's on a call with like a bank, and the bank puts him on hold. He'll be like, God fucking damn it. Like, he'll get so angry, and then he'll be completely normal again. And I lived with him. Huh? Well, I was
Yeah,
gonna
go
say
ahead.
I lived with him for a while, and we became very good friends, like one of my best guy friends. And there was this one day where he was doing that on the phone, and I was like, I need to avoid him because he's a lot for me right now. And he felt that. He felt me avoiding him, and he asked if I wanted to go on a walk with the dog, and I said no. And long story short, he was so vulnerable and came up to me and just said, he actually started to get tears in his eyes, and he said, I may be being dramatic right now, but I really, I feel you being annoyed at me, and I'm just so afraid of more people leaving me in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Each of these
Whoa.
tends to recreate the wounding scenario from their childhood by the thing they're doing to try to feel safer from that scenario. And with this pattern, the person tends to create other people abandoning them. The wounding scenario was, I need people to help me and no one is here. And therefore, I will close my heart and I'll never trust them again, and I'll only trust myself, and begin using anger and power strategically. How angry do I need to get you to do what I want? So if you're dealing with somebody on the phone from, customer service or something, it's like, okay, do I need to yell at you to get you to give me what I want? I can do that. Very different strategy from a person running a different pattern.
Yes.
And they have a big flow of energy in the body, right? Which tends to kind of build up a charge. And being angry at somebody is an opportunity to vent that charge. So I feel fine after it. They also, it's a really good idea for people, both aggressive and enduring patterns. It's a good idea, since they do have a lot of current in their body, to they want to get out and do exercise, run or ski or do something physical to burn off the energy, because there's a big flow and they need to. And this, sitting in a quiet meditation hall for 3 days, not so easy.
Mm. So we know for the leaving pattern, the merging pattern, and the rigid pattern, a great way to begin to come back into presence is to bring your awareness into your body. Feel that core
Right.
and that pillar. So for the
Mhm.
aggressive pattern, what is like the process to come back to presence for them? Or the healing.
Yeah. First of all, to realize, and people who run this pattern know it, that what they're doing is scaring other people. It's hard to sort of come down from that. If you think in electrical terms, it's like most people are running 100 volts, right? And a person who typically does aggressive pattern is running 200 volts. And if they need to, they can jump that up to 400 volts, no problem. And they will just automatically be running more energy than some people can stand. If you have an aggressive pattern, leaving pattern combination, two different people, frequently the aggressive pattern person is running so much energy, even if they're just happy and calm, or maybe excited, maybe like, hey, this is great, let's go see this movie. It's more energy than the leaving pattern person can tolerate, because they don't have very good defenses energetically around their body, and too much stuff comes in, and they don't have core to protect themselves. So that's a mismatch. How does It's hard for a person who's really caught in aggressive pattern to come into psychotherapy or start some kind of healing practice. They usually need to have some kind of catastrophic loss, collapse, you know, um, and it's hard to get to that. The guys in the military, the Green Berets, all the special forces guys who will die rather than surrender,
Mm.
right? They're never going to surrender. A person a person who's running aggressive pattern has to at some point come to the discovery that this isn't really working for me and I need a better way. And being seen and held with the kind of kindness and compassion that you're talking about is very helpful. And being able to uh, read this book, for instance, and see, oh, wait a minute, this isn't who I really am. There's often a fear, there's something wrong with me. I don't have much heart. I can't, I don't love anybody. What's going on? I shouldn't, I'm not a good person. There's a monster inside. Everybody has their fears. For this one, it's that there's a monster inside and it gets out and it hurts people. So being able to learn about this map of personality and realize, oh, this isn't really who I am. This is a safety strategy that I've developed, which then developed into a whole personality pattern, but it's not really me. And I can learn basic energy skills and come out of it. And I can notice when I'm going into pattern and catch myself and come back to being present. And I don't have to be caught there all the time. It's important that we all discover we don't have to live our lives caught in our patterns. Because if we're caught in our patterns are running our lives. They make the decisions. They control everything about our lives. And we aren't really in charge, which is one of the real reasons that it's a good idea for a person to learn about this, and begin developing the skills to help them come out of whatever patterns they do and come back to being present.
Yes. I my intention that I'll set with you now is that this becomes one of the most popular psychology, personal development books in the world because so many people who want to better themselves, who,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone who is like an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
this can only benefit them. And I have so much compassion for everyone that it feels lost in a pattern and doesn't know why it's happening. But when I think of entrepreneurship and I think of the last two developing patterns of the aggressive and rigid, those tend
Yeah.
to be the people who like can, even if they're in pattern, they can be very successful.
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
we have people in the first three patterns, the leaving, merging, and enduring, where they're kind of like, why am I not as driven as them? Why do I collapse after
Yeah.
trying to put out effort? Why am I so triggered by everything all the time?
Yeah.
And really, when we can understand this pattern and develop these energy skills and come into really like strengthening our connection to our core and ourself and all of
Mm-hmm.
this, I definitely became a lot better of an entrepreneur. I have more grit, I have more energy, I have more stamina, I have more creativity.
Right, because you develop the skills that your patterns did not cause you to develop.
Mhm.
Each of these patterns will cause a person to develop certain skills, like with merging pattern, the skill of feeling the other person's core and sensing, well, what are they feeling and what do they need and what do they want and who do they want me to be? All useful stuff. And, if you look at aggressive pattern people, they can feel themselves. They can't feel other people very well. But uh, each of us needs to learn the skills we missed in childhood so that we can become an emotionally mature adult.
Mhm.
Because to be an emotionally mature adult, a person needs to have a strong felt sense of their own core. They need to feel connected to the earth beneath them, grounding skill. They need to have an energetic edge that actually protects them and allows into their space only what is good for them and not other people's energy that's just kind of floating through. And they need to be able to distinguish me from not me. There are a lot of problems in the world that need some help, but maybe it's not your job to fix that. You have to be able to distinguish, well, what is for me to handle and what is not for me. And what, like, if someone else is angry or if someone else is sad or if someone else is jealous, they're having that feeling. But am I having that feeling? Maybe not. I might have empathy for them, but I have empathy for them that they feel it. I don't have to feel it. You know, that's a real important distinction to be able to make.
Did you find that when you started studying this and using it with your therapy clients,
Mhm.
that from shifting from like maybe you were doing talk therapy, I'm not sure, like focused a lot in the mind to to teaching these energy skills, did your clients have like a lot quicker of a transformation that they were seeking?
Yeah, I often discovered that, well, first of all, you have to realize that if we are having some kind of problem, we can only conceive of that problem, conceptualize that problem based on the concepts we already have. If the only concept we have is this is caused by, the gods don't like me. I didn't sacrifice, or my parents didn't sacrifice to the right gods at the moment I was born, so I'm not blessed. I'm bad. If that's your only concept, you can't think any other way. And as a person, where was I going with this? Oh, when people, now that we have a society which is really a lot based on psychology, which is a really good thing, it's a really good development in our society. And it leads people to think that whatever problem they have is a psychological problem. I've seen that many people who come into therapy believing they have a psychological problem actually are simply missing one or several of the basic energy skills. Like, oh, I don't have any boundaries. I don't know how to say no to anybody. Okay, to say no to anybody, you have to develop core and you have to develop edge. You have to know when something is coming in that you don't like, and you have to know that you don't like it. If you're missing those two energy skills, you don't have any boundaries. You don't have the basis for it, right?
Yes.
So teaching clients the energy skills often solves the problem that they were conceiving of as psychological.
Oh my goodness, it's so good. In my head, I'm like, I feel like I'm a cheerleader. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I love it. So I have two questions for you before we wrap up. The first
Yeah.
is, I would love to just hear a little bit more about the enduring pattern since we dove into all the others. Really,
Yeah.
when I think of the enduring pattern, I think of another person that I love deeply that experienced a lot of abuse in childhood and had to endure it to survive
Yeah.
and couldn't fight back or it would get worse. And
Right.
this person has big dreams, wants to
Hmm.
be really healthy,
Yeah.
feels drawn to this work, but has a lot of resistance. Like I remember she did a breath work with me once and it was so overwhelming for her to start to feel emotion.
Mhm.
So what is the beginning path for that kind of person?
I think a really good beginning for anybody with any set of patterns is simply to learn the map of the patterns so that you can begin to realize, first of all, everybody is not just like me, and I am this way versus someone else being that way, so that you begin to be able to place yourself and you begin to realize, oh, this thing that I feel and this thing that I do and I want, it doesn't make me wrong or weird. It's just that's what goes with this personality pattern. And then for people who do the enduring pattern, there's a particularly tricky problem that they face, which is if they were being tracked by parents, big, powerful parents, they're 3 or 4 years old, um, especially if they were being psychically tracked by those parents, the problem was when their parent could find them, their parent would punish them, right? Or humiliate them, call them names, insult them. You know, you're such a crybaby. You're so stupid, right?
Mhm.
So they learned to not be visible. They learned to disappear. And the way to disappear is to, slow down your energy and kind of hide down deep in the ground. But if you do something, any self action, any self expression, any taking a position about something calls attention to you. So if you pop your head up out of the foxhole and you go, well, I don't like this, or I do like this, or how about if we do that, or I want such and such, you've suddenly come onto their radar and the targeting radar finds you and the missiles are coming in, right? So you
Yep.
learn to not stick your head up. And to not stick your head up, you have to not do anything. Or if you try, maybe you enroll in grad school or you start a project or something. The time when you become most visible to other people is at the end. It's when you get the grade, when you succeed or fail, even if you're just playing a game of pool with somebody, it's when you finish the game and you either beat them or they beat you. That's the moment of assessment. But you have to avoid the moment of assessment because that's the danger. That's where the danger comes in. So people who do the enduring pattern learn to not finish the game, right? If I can't win, how do I avoid losing? One way to avoid losing is don't finish the game. don't complete the class, don't graduate from the program, don't turn in your final exam or your final project.
Stay
So
small, don't be seen.
stay small, don't be seen, because that's where the safety is.
Mhm.
So even if the person wants to do something and starts to do it, as they get better at it and as they get near to whatever their goal is, the danger mounts. There's a whole section in the chapter on enduring pattern in my book about this is basically a self-sabotage problem. So as a therapist, I learned that in working with people caught in this pattern, I had to be very careful to not get more excited about their success than they were. For a person with merging pattern, what would support them is for me to say, this is great. You're doing so wonderful. I'm proud of you. Yay for you, right? If I would do that to a person caught in enduring pattern, it would scare the hell out of them. It's like, oh no, now you can see me. I'm in danger. Down, right? So I learned to
Yeah.
just sit back and let them have it and go, wow. So how do you feel about that? Is that good? Okay, good for you. But keep my energy smaller than theirs. Make sure they own it. They have it. Don't take it from them. Because that's another problem, another part of the wounding of the enduring pattern that as a kid, you do something like you draw a picture, right? And you show the picture to your mom and she says, oh, Bobby, that's a wonderful picture. And she puts it on the refrigerator and you feel like, this is great. I do pictures. And then her friend comes over and she doesn't say, look at this great picture that Bobby drew. She says, look at this picture that my son drew. She just took it from you. She just appropriated it. Now it's not yours, it's her son's. And it's hers in some way. And parents who tend to, create enduring pattern kids will take the successes away from them over and over again. So the kid learns anything that I do is going to get taken away. Don't do it.
Oh, that's so fascinating.
A woman was telling me the other day that her father, that she learned as a child, that if she let her father know that she liked or cared about anything, he would take it away. He would destroy it or remove it, or he wouldn't let her keep it. Now, you would think a parent who loves the child would go, oh, you love that. That's great. We'll get you some more of that. You know, that wasn't what he was doing. He would take it away. So she learned, don't say it. Don't let him know.
Like, I'm not safe to be successful. I'm not safe to have
Exactly.
my desires. I'm not safe to be seen.
Right. I mean, social success, your company is making money. You're really bright out there, man. You can't hide then.
Hmm.
Big danger. Very hard for a person running the enduring pattern to tolerate. On the other hand, for a person who's running rigid pattern or aggressive pattern, they love it. It's like, yeah, I passed the test. I'm on top. I'm better than you. I'm good, right? It fits with the pattern, whereas with enduring pattern, it doesn't. Merging pattern is a little scary because, like, well, if I'm bigger than you, you're not going to fix it for me anymore. You know, like I want to be second. How about if you go first? I'll follow, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. It plays out in every area.
It does. And if you're running a company or assembling a team, you want people with each of these skills on the team. I mean, you need to assess what is our task? What is our job here? And what skills do we need to do this job? And then you need to assemble a team which has all those skills. If you have only people with one set of skills, they're not going to be able to finish it if they don't have the skills needed for the job. So you need to get the skills in the people. and then assign them to use the skills they have, right? Like for a
Yeah.
person who does rigid pattern, they're really focused on what's right and what's wrong, what's correct, what's incorrect, right? And they're going to tell you, they're going to notice, oh, you left out a comma here. This should be in a bigger font. No, you said that wrong. Your grammar wasn't right there, right? For things that don't matter, they're going to get upset about it. So you can give them that job. You can say, okay, what I want you to do for this team is I want you to watch for what you're doing wrong, but I don't want you to tell us all the time. I'm going to turn to you and ask you regularly. And when I ask you, I want you to be ready to tell us where we're screwing up here. Okay? But not every day. So you've acknowledged their skill and you've validated it, but you've also contained it.
Mm.
So they don't just walk around saying, oh, how could you wear those two socks together? Those don't match. Those don't match you're wearing socks with sandals? Please. What's wrong with you?
Wow, this morning I was visualizing my coaching business growing, and I envisioned an assistant like supporting me on the back end, and I'm going to use this as I grow my team over the years to
Exactly.
really, yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. You need to get an assistant who can do the stuff that you can't do. There's a fellow in Europe who's a very high level executive coach and does wonderful work and has invited me to come over there and work with some of the corporations that he's got interested in this stuff. He does leaving and merging patterns, and he's great at connecting with people. And he has on his team an assistant who does rigid pattern, and he says, "Look, I can't handle logistics. I don't know what time it is, but my assistant here does that. So when you need to know about that, ask her because I don't know." He recognizes he's good at certain things, but he's not good at everything, and he's delegated the stuff that he's not good at to someone who is good at it. This is
That would have, I was going to say, that would have been supportive for our emailing about the time zones back and forth.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
amazing.
We all need certain kinds of help, and if we know what kind of help, we can arrange to get the help we need. It doesn't have
Yes.
to be difficult or embarrassing or anything like that. It's like if you're buying a pair of shoes, why not get the size that fits you?
Mm. Stephen, this information lit a fire under me, and I'm sure everyone listening. It is probably like the or one of the most important things that we can learn about ourselves and
I think
about
so.
others.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what is, if you have like, if you could set a vision or an intention right now for the next 10, 20 years with this work, what would you like to see?
I would like for this material, this understanding, this way of understanding people to be taught in every middle school and high school around the world. I think if like the whole next generation starts out with this way of understanding themselves, first of all, it will engender not only a lot more understanding, but compassion for other people. Because you realize, oh, wait a minute, they're not mean, they're scared. And they're doing their thing to try to feel safer. And I actually can help them feel safer, and then they'll calm down,
Mm.
right? And if everybody could learn not only this map of personality, but the energy skills needed to become an emotionally healthy, mature adult, maybe we could have a much happier, more prosperous world. Maybe we wouldn't have to be having so many wars with each other. You know,
Wow.
I think things could be better all around the world. I don't think it's going to bring, complete world peace, but I sure think it would improve things.
When you started to talk about the next generation, middle school and high school learning, this
Uh-huh.
elementary school, whatever ages, the first thing that popped in my mind was so much more world peace. Like it's both easy and hard to imagine a whole society of a generation having these energetic skills. Like we would all be, I mean, it would be a completely different planet.
It would be. And teenagers are in the stage of life where their main focus is figuring out, well, who am I and where do I fit in? And how do I interact with these other people who are so different and weird? And I don't understand what's going on with them at all.
Mm.
If they had this way to understand people in general, others, and themselves, all of that would get a lot simpler. And they would get the idea that these patterns are their safety strategies, grown into whole constructs in you, personality patterns, but they're not who you really are. And you can learn the energy skills you need and heal the traumas that are fueling your patterns. And you can stabilize your attention, which is the main thing in life. To be able to stabilize your attention so it stays where you want it to stay and it doesn't just flit around all over the place like our attention does most of the time. And then they could be much happier people. They could be teenagers who feel okay about themselves in their lives and who
It
know
almost
when,
feels like,
pardon me,
go ahead.
I was going to say know when to say yes and when to say no, when to
Mm.
say I need some help here, when to
Yeah, it
say I
almost
don't.
feels like, oh, sorry. I was gonna say it almost feels like preventative medicine. Like,
Exactly.
instead of waiting until this disaster happens and you begin to have this existential crisis, who am I? Why is this happening? It's like we're actually meeting the teenagers where they're at. We're giving them these skills, this wisdom, this knowledge.
Right. And parents who have this knowledge and these skills become much better parents to their children
Mm.
because they don't um, inflict their patterns on their children the same way that most of us habitually do. And they can recognize, oh, this kid has this particular set of skills and they're developing this way, which isn't my way, but it's an okay way. And how do I find someone who can guide them in that? I mean, if you have a kid who's developing aggressive pattern and you don't do that yourself, they get to be 15, they're not listening to you anymore. But maybe there is a sports coach, a coach for a team, maybe it's lacrosse or football or rowing or running or I don't know what, but somebody who can hold that core and who can say, look, you want to be on this team? You have to do it this way. And I'm not, you don't get to mess with me and you don't get to abuse anybody else on the team. You try that stuff, I throw you off the team. We clear? And it's that core to core communication that works for a person who does aggressive pattern. Now, I just did that core to core, and I'll bet some people watching this who don't have core and don't do aggressive pattern are going, ah, too much.
Yes.
So I apologize. I was
I,
trying to demonstrate. I apologize. I realized afterward that might have been too much for some people.
when you were talking about building a team for like an entrepreneur, I see this vision of like teams in these schools of like people, like someone who is embodied and healed with the aggressive pattern, all of these different patterns, really
Exactly.
supporting these kids. Is this happening at all, like right now, with people who know your work?
Somewhat, somewhat. It is getting taught in some high schools. There's um, a summer camp for 18 to 29-year-olds, so it's young adults, people in their 20s. It's called Sleepaway Camp. A guy named Jeff Lieberman organized it, and this is one of the sets of skills that they teach. But they're making healthy young adults. So they get kids coming out of high school with, all the usual junk, and they're helping them do better. And there are people teaching this in lots of different situations. It's usually adult situations, people like yourself who are coaches or psychotherapists, and they're teaching it to their clients. But
Wow.
I think if we could bring it into a situation where the person didn't have to realize, I have a problem and I need help with it, and I'm willing to go pay somebody to help me fix this problem. If we could teach it in school the same way we teach math and science and history, we'd have a healthier society.
Mm. I love the summer camp. Like when you said that, I was like, oh, I'm still 29. Like, could I go? It
Maybe.
sounds so like you're learning these skills, but you're also bringing in this like fun and this play and this desire.
Exactly. Exactly.
So cool.
You
Well,
can
Stephen,
you can find
go
their
ahead.
website and ask them. I don't know.
I appreciate you so much for taking so much of your time, your energy, your wisdom, sharing it with us. How can people find you and the book and any of your courses?
So the book, obviously called The Five Personality Patterns, and the website for the book is, of course, the5personalitypatterns.com. Whether the five is a numeral or you spell it out, either way, you'll get the same place. And there's a lot of different resources on the website. There are summaries of each of the five patterns. There are 3 video courses that I've created and recorded. I recorded them when I did them live, and I'm not doing them live anymore, but a person can sign up for the course and go through it and watch the videos at your own pace. And there's a blog with a whole bunch of different articles about different things that might be useful. So that's one way. Um, the book, of course, can be found in bookstores and Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and and in French and Spanish now.
Nice.
Yay! And I'm working on a second book called How to Have Better Relationships, which is basically, sort of a shortened summary of these 5 patterns. Okay, learn about that, and then what patterns does this other person that I'm having trouble with, what patterns do they run, and how do they want me to approach them? Like, what is their native language? And I'm not thinking, French or German or Spanish or Chinese here. I'm thinking, if
How
they
do they
speak
see the world?
one way, if they speak merging, that's different. If you want to connect with somebody who does merging pattern, you drop your awareness to your heart and you go heart to heart. Bingo. Instant connection, right? Doesn't work with anybody else, any other pattern.
Why?
Pattern, go core to core. That's what they want. That's the language they speak. Rigid pattern, you got to follow the rules. You got to figure out what are their rules, because they could have Libertarian Party rules or Communist Party rules or Republican Party rules or Democratic Party rules or Catholic Church rules or, free love, summer of love in San Francisco rules. There could be lots of different sets of rules. You better figure out what their rules are. So I should be short. I want to shorten this because I know that we're running long here. But so what? The website, the book, the second book is coming
The
out.
courses.
Website, if people want to sign up for my newsletter, there's a way to do that. And then, when something's happening, I'll send out a newsletter and let them know. I don't send it that often. I'm not that busy being an entrepreneur, frankly.
Well, it's kind of nice because when you do send them, I read them because they're so infrequent. Like I know about this upcoming book. I cannot wait to read it.
Yeah. I hope to get
Um,
that out by the end of the summer
oh, great.
2024. I hope.
I
We'll
love
see.
very soon. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. Anyone who feels called to diving deeper, definitely go to the website, check out the book. And yes, thank you. It was so lovely.
Thank you so much for all the ways that you're contributing to this. And you're teaching it to people in the way you understand it. And that's how um, people's experience and their own teaching happens. You have an experience of this that's filtered through your life and your particular patterns. It's different from mine. And like if you're teaching other women who do leaving and merging patterns, you understand them better than I ever could.
Mm.
This is a great thing. So thank you so much for all those stuff you're doing to spread the word on this. I really appreciate it. And as I
Wow,
said,
thank
you understand TikTok. I can't even get near that. I don't know what that's about.
you. Yeah, well, I'm so happy for the universe to share all of this wisdom that you've put in a book through me out to all of the TikTokers. So thank you. That really meant a lot.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.